Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. We are very excited today to have Dharmachari Nagaraja, and we are going to be talking about his book, The Calm Buddha at Bedtime. Tales of Wisdom, Compassion, and Mindfulness to read to your child. So, welcome, Should I call you Nagaraja or Richard?
Nagaraja, yes, that's the Nagaraja.
Nagaraja. So tell me about what prompted you to write this book.
Well, it's one of three. So this is the third one that I've written,
Hmm.
and it arose out of me using parables and stories when I did some radio work for radio BBC Radio Two. We started back in 1990s and right through to 2000,
Hmm.
and I just found that people just seem to respond well to me actually using parables because although I had to do something which was definitely of a Buddhist flavour, it seemed that storytelling just sort of transcends, crosses all barriers. Everybody can identify, adults and children. Uh, we hold real sort of basic, simple truths, and it connects with imagination. So it's not just
Mm.
ideas. Stories connect your imagination and your heart. So they seem to be effective. So the first two books were very successful, so they asked me to do another one.
All right, so there's already questions coming in. What is the book about? And for folks who want to know, so there's a whole bunch of parables in here, and what I love about it is if you're a parent and you want to teach your kid a lesson, you want to school your child. So here's a list of things, and I don't know if people can read that, but so the ones I start are the ones that I thought, oh, here are the ones that are interesting for me. So one is the cornflower and the mischievous donkey, which is a parable, and the more of a lesson is all of our actions have consequences. So this would be I'd imagine when my kids were younger to like figure out what something happened at the playground, and I was trying to figure out what wisdom I could give my child. It would be perhaps telling them a story,
Yeah.
and that the story has a lesson inside. And then each of the stories is accompanied by either this cute little dog. Who is this dog? Is that your dog? Let's see. Can people see the picture? It has a picture of a dog or a laughing Buddha with kind of takeaways for the reader. Is this your
Yeah.
dog?
Yeah, that's Archie. He turned up in this book. He's an extra element. He's partly. A lot of it's about trying to get adults and children to engage together
Mm-hmm.
with these parables, which are drawn from the ancient traditional parables, stories which were said that the Buddha told them as teaching tools. So what I've done is
Oh.
back and drawn out of these original tales from they're called the Jataka tales and try to bring them forward so they're in language and images which are useful and accessible to children. Because in the original stories, they had a lot more, what would say, adult themes.
Mm.
So I've had to take out quite a lot of murder and decapitation and dead bodies, a lot of death in them. And it was felt, which I went with this, that the publishers felt that maybe as a bedtime storybook, death wasn't necessarily a very calming way to send
Yeah.
children to sleep.
Well,
No,
I
and
don't.
of course, the children,
What was the text again? The sacred text that was called the. What was the name of the text that you said that you were transcribing or translating from?
the Jataka tales,
The Jataka tales. How do you spell that?
Jataka. So if you
J-
Google Jataka tales, you get
Ah,
there's
okay. What were these tales about? I know that they were kind of morbid and scary for the Buddhist adults, but what were the tales essentially about? What was the purpose of these tales?
They were educational. It was a way of the Buddha. The Buddha was teaching to people from all different walks of life, different situations, different age groups. So he used stories, and in the way that stories have been used traditionally for years to try and communicate his message, basically his basic teachings, which were around developing compassion, generosity, wisdom, and so the stories would be, each one would have a specific slant on it of what the angle was. But again, like all good stories and even short parables, whenever you come back to them at different ages, you get a slightly different message from them.
Right, and depend on the context of what you're like the what happened to you at that moment during the day, how you approach it would be different. So, and so this is you've had 3 books, and it's
Yeah.
from the Jaraka. I know I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but
Ah,
but the sacred text from the Buddha. And was that text all about the Four Noble Truths, or did it have different parables depending on what
well,
he
the
was trying
four,
to teach?
yeah, well, the four noble truths are the sort of principal teachings out of which everything else extrapolates
Ah,
from.
okay.
Them. So these were like fundamental ideas. So everything comes out of that. Looking at, do you want me to say what the Four Noble
Yeah,
Truths
because
are?
people may not know what they are.
Yeah, so the Four Noble Truths, the first Noble Truth is that and this might seem a bit obvious to some people, is that there is suffering in life. There is discontentment as part of life. And there's that again. I mean, I work as a psychotherapist nowadays, and it's amazing the number of times I'm working with adults, trying to bring them into relationship with reality, because a lot of adults are caught in a world or a mental place of torment because they're not who they want to be or who they think they should be. And I'm sort of working with trying to go, but yeah, who are you? What do you actually think? What do you actually feel? And coming back to people's actual experience. So the first noble truth is sort of recognizing that suffering is part of life. It's not personal. You know,
Right.
it's actually the nature of existence. We all grow old. We all get sick. We all die. How do we live in the face of that? How do we work in relationship with that? The second noble truth is that comes about that with suffering, what happens next is we don't want to suffer. So we spend our lives trying to avoid suffering, which actually in the end leads to more suffering. And that can be psychological or even physical. You know, so you might want to be famous, you might want to be rich, or you might just want to avoid feeling jealousy or anger. I mean, that's a common one. I find that people that come along to Buddhism quite a lot, that was something that I noticed a lot, was that I think Buddhists sort of, people who sort of meet Buddhism quite often think it's kind of like Christianity but nicer, because Buddhists don't get angry because they're non-violent. So you find lots of people sort of trying to be Buddhists and kind of not getting angry. And that's not the issue. The issue is actually situations bring out anger. How do you work with that? Become curious and interested in it, work through it. So the book, again, is very much about trying to get children and adults, because the idea is them working together, trying to get children and adults to just start to work more straightforwardly and realistically with reality. So if you are angry, if you are jealous, how to work with that. I mean, and I think partly it all comes from one's own story, but I mean, my history of growing up was very much about my education. Cognitively, it was about what I should think. Emotionally, what I should feel if I was a good boy, you know, and what feelings were allowed and what feelings were not allowed. So you learn very early on just to kind of push bits behind you. Take it out on somebody else later on. So it's about what you should think, what you should feel, whereas the Buddhist approach is much more about actually learning to think for yourself, which is very dangerous for society, because we don't want individuals thinking for themselves, because of course it will just lead to anarchy. So we should all think the same. So it's very much about trying to understand what you think, and really emotional education. So a lot of the book is about emotional education, getting people to understand what the feelings are. You know, if you're angry, don't just get stuck at the point of going, I shouldn't be angry. But actually just starting to think, well, if I'm angry, anger is a defense mechanism. So I must be pushing something away. Will I feel threatened? So if we go behind that, what's actually been threatened in the moment, and then how to work with that feeling. And also just being aware that feelings, thoughts, just noticing that they all pass if you allow them to. Quite often, a lot of people, they get caught in rumination, get caught up in feelings again because I shouldn't feel like this.
Right.
You know, and I make my living nowadays trying to give people permission to have their experience and then go, right, okay, so you're angry, so let's do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you call it.
So it's like as a child, we are learned to kind of sublimate our emotions and not really experience them. So then as adults, guess what? We also continuing to do the same thing. So
And then
I'm
we do it to each other.
right.
Then we do it to each other. Cheer up. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You should be happy.
Get over it.
Yeah, get over it. Why? My response to that when people say, because I have a face when I'm not speaking, when it sort of settles in, I do have a face that looks naturally depressed. I do have a
Okay.
sort of,
Some
and so
people are all saying, "What's wrong?
what's
Dr.
wrong?
Char, what's wrong?"
Why don't you cheer up? And my response, which might be slightly aggressive, was always more sort of like, well, actually, if you're that happy and contented in yourself, it doesn't matter how I feel, you know. You're actually the one with the problem because I'm just at this moment miserable. Leave me alone.
Oh, wow. I've never even thought of responding that way. That's an
That's
interesting way to
they're bullying
respond.
you.
What?
They're bullying you. It's the very subtle message you get off right from childhood. Don't be the way you are. Be
Right.
different.
Right.
And then you start to split off. And again, that's what I work with therapy all the time. You
Hmm.
know, it's normal to feel sad. It's normal to feel like these are normal things, and they pass. That's the whole thing. They will
See,
pass.
I always thought it was just because I'm Asian that I've been doing that. Because at one time I've worked a ton with my own life and therapy, and basically if you have like 20 different emotions that a normal human being would be able to express, as an Asian I have like anger and laughter. That's it. And like guilt. Those are the three out of the 20. So everything, like you were saying, anger is really the defense mechanism for something else that you're hiding. So I didn't realize that. So do you feel like Scottish people also kind of have that same kind of education, or is it just worldwide? I don't really know how bad it is because I was just talking to a woman from Chile, a Chilean woman. She's like, "Oh yes, we're not." And I would imagine South America you'd be more expressive, but I honestly don't know. Now I think everyone just is used like is used to just, champing down their emotions. I don't know.
I
What
think
have
in
you
different
experienced?
cultures, different emotions or different ways of expressing yourself more accepted. It might be because we're becoming more global, that we're
Mm,
all kind of affected by each other. But I mean, there just is well, the way I experience, again, it's my experiences anecdotally, and even myself, I'm just aware of what, because I'm not allowed to express anger. So I'm one of those people who, would hold it in, hold, no, everything's fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, and then ah, rather than actually just sort of saying, no, I don't want that, thank you. But it's,
right.
so it's that sort of thing in our culture. The way I was brought up is very, very, you're not allowed to ask what you want. That's kind of selfish and self-interested,
Mm,
to say. But so it's like, why is it that if there's one biscuit left, I'm not allowed to take it? How come everybody else can have the last biscuit, but I can't? Couldn't I
mm,
for it and then I could negotiate with somebody else if they want it as well?
right.
But there's a sort of self exclusion a lot, and we
Hmm.
do lots of different ways. So even just saying boundaries, simple boundaries, like being able to say no, or to ask for something, it's in my culture, I think, is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, that's for Chinese culture. You're never supposed to not eat something. If someone puts something on your plate, you're like force fed livestock. You're expected to eat regardless of whether you're hungry or not. Doesn't matter. Just eat it. It's on your plate. We cannot waste those kind of things. All right. So we had a question from one of the listeners. Can you please give the name of the book again? And it's The Calm Buddha at Bedtime. So when you've read these, do you have children or have you read your book to children? And what are their responses?
So that's the strange thing, isn't it? I don't actually have any children in my life. I've got no nieces and nephews or relations. I don't have much contact with them. I did work in a secondary school as a
Yeah.
counsellor for 5 years, but that was
Yeah.
mainly 12 to 16-year-olds.
Right.
So my main experience of the feedback from the book is, again, I just read reviews of how
Mm,
I'm trying to find out what works and what doesn't work, and
yeah.
is it useful or not useful? And in that, the feedback is adults do seem to connect to it, and they seem to appreciate it. Because again, the idea is it's something to come together over, to stimulate conversation, to stimulate intimacy and communication. Both of us looking at something, we're both kind of got this in between us and we're talking to each other. And that a lot of the feedback is that it stimulates conversation between us, at the time of reading it and for days afterwards. So, but I will go and find some children in the street and go, my.
All right, so we are going to be your children. I thought you could actually read one of my favorite stories, which is the one on page 48. I really like that story. Maybe because it's most relevant for me now. I don't know. But it's so I'll show you the picture of the book while you read it. So it's called Crystal and the Pixie. This is the picture. And who did these illustrations? They're quite beautiful.
I haven't actually met the illustrator. Nowadays, everything's designed and done over the internet.
Yeah.
Even interviews.
And these were so. Do you remember what parable this was taken from the Buddha? Because you said this was translated from an original parable.
This is Crystal.
And the Pixie.
Okay. This is actually so. This is one of the sort of challenging. So this is taken from a really famous parable that I think lots of people know. It's either called Kisa Gotami or the mustard seed story, and it's actually a story about a young woman whose child dies very early, and she becomes really, really distraught and starts to walk about her village with carrying her dead baby.
Oh wow!
Asking for help. Could somebody please bring it back to life? And she goes to the Buddha. Somebody says go to the Buddha, and the Buddha says, well, yes, I can bring your baby back to life, but first of all, you must do this task. And so it's through doing the task that she then gains insight. I mean, he doesn't bring the baby back to life, but again, it's these sort of things about bringing people into relationship with reality, and through the task that he sets her, she actually comes to realize about universal suffering and moves beyond that pain. She develops what's called insight into the reality. So the stories are very much about real life things in a story situation, and that story of people losing their children very early on is that's not something specific to 2,500 years ago. That's something that have tackled, human beings just tackled. So the original story is very, very powerful. So it was trying to take that idea and then in a way trying to make it that you could engage with a child and get them to maybe start to identify some of the ideas in it and the sort of basic principle of it in a way that wouldn't frighten them really.
It's funny. This is a little bit. This does relate, but I was just taking a writing class, and in the writing class is someone who writes children's books, and the teacher of this writing class just published. She's just finished getting her line edits for a children's book, and she said that. That her author, her publisher said, there needs to be more conflict in the book. This is a book about a whale, actually a whale that existed, and there were times when the whale was, almost killed because of global warming. I mean, there are all these things where the whale was actually stuck on the beach, and there are all these stories about the whale, and even there's these blood popsicles that they make out of. Something there, it was quite a gory. And she said that her American publisher said, now kids nowadays, they want to hear the real story because they can handle it, which I thought was really interesting because, when I was little, no one would ever talk. When someone died in the family, it was like you didn't even go to the funeral because it was too terrifying to see a dead person. And nowadays, children are exposed to so much that they don't want you to hold back. So, which is interesting because I don't know. Maybe the American publisher be like, yeah, put that woman with the dead baby and have her walk around. But I was actually surprised that nowadays she said that at least American kids have seen such awful things, and they want to know the real truth. They don't want to have it candy coated. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not generally, but I thought that was an interesting
Well, when
comment.
I was a child, people didn't even die; they passed away, or you
Yeah,
know,
like what does that mean? They passed away. What does that even mean?
they went to sleep and just didn't wake up. I'm never going to sleep again.
Yeah, like some stork took them away. It's
Yes.
just they came in the way that they came. Some stork came, flew by, picked them up, and they're off to some other land. Um,
Well, I'll get back to my publishers.
okay,
I think we need more blood.
we
I
need some
think we
more
need.
blood. Kids like vampires, death, and gruel. So enough with the
Oh,
pixies. No, just kidding. But let's read the Crystal and the Pixie.
okay, no. So, and the pixie. Just to put it into context, remember these, as I said earlier, these stories are about helping children go to sleep.
Okay.
So it's the
Yeah, the
calm.
dead baby's not probably not a good idea.
But I'm going with your theme. I'm going with your. You, if you fall asleep during this, we will just out of the fact that it's so blancmange.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, doke. So, Crystal and the Pixie. Take a deep, relaxing breath, snuggle down, and listen carefully to this tale about a little girl called Crystal. One day she had an extraordinary adventure. What do you think happened? Let's read the story and find out. Crystal's head had been thumping for 2 whole days, and she felt hot and shivery all over. It's not fair, she croaked. I want to go to Gloria's party this afternoon. I'm sorry, sweetheart. You're not well enough, said Dad. You need to stay in bed for another day at least. Crystal burst into tears. She'd been looking forward to the party so much. Gloria's my best friend, and I wanted to wear my lovely new dress, she sobbed. I know, said Dad as he plumped her pillow, but just try to rest. Perhaps you'll feel brighter after that. Tears ran down Crystal's hot cheeks, but soon she fell asleep. And as she slept, she had the strangest dream. A pixie in a rainbow-coloured waistcoat floated toward her in a cloud. Don't cry, he said kindly, and he patted the cloud so that Crystal could sit beside him. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone about your problems. Do you want to tell me what's up? The little pixie seemed very kind, so Crystal snuffled back her tears and told him everything. I have a sore head and my tummy hurts and I can't stop crying because it's my friend's birthday party and Dad says I can't go. I have to stay in bed and it's just not fair. I'm going to be in bed for the rest of my life. I know it. As she talked, tears started rolling down her cheeks again. Oh dear, it's a good job I'm a magic pixie, he said. I'm sure I can make you feel better. What do you mean? Said Crystal curiously. Can you grant me 3 magic wishes? The pixie smiled. Something like that. What would you wish for? That's easy, said Crystal, holding up her fingers. She went, 1, I wish I wasn't ill. 2, I wish I didn't feel so upset. And 3, I wish I could go to the party. Without a moment's hesitation, the pixie said, well, all you have to do is find a handkerchief to dry those tears. Is that all? Asked Crystal. This really was a wonderful dream. If I find a hanky, my wishes will come true. Yes, the pixie nodded. But you have to get the hanky from someone who has never felt upset, sick, or hurt. Someone who has never cried. I can do that. That's easy, said Crystal, hopping onto a rainbow at the edge of the cloud. She slid it down it like a slide. Dad's the bravest man alive, and Mum's never ill. I bet neither of them ever cries. Grown-ups don't cry. Crystal peered in through her living room window. Mum was passing Dad a tissue. They were watching a sad movie on TV, and they were both crying. For a moment, Crystal was upset. She couldn't get a hanky from them. Then she had an idea. I know. I'll phone Uncle Theo. He's a police officer, so I bet he's never cried. A jolly-looking sunflower appeared and passed Crystal a phone. But when she called up Uncle Theo, he told her he did sometimes cry, like when his son Blue went off to college and he missed him. So she racked her brains to figure out who else she could phone. One by one she tried them. Aunt Jenny, the firefighter. Cousin Peter, who was studying to be a nurse, and even Miss Ingram, her teacher. But they all told her about times in their lives when they felt so hurt or upset that they cried. Finally, Crystal spotted Grandpa. He was floating past in a cloud, merrily waving his walking stick at her. "Hi there," she called. Surely Grandpa was far too wise to cry. But even he said he got sad and frustrated enough to cry at times, like when Grandma Josephine had passed away, or his arthritis got very painful. "I tried to let myself be upset for only a little while, though," he said, kissing her as he floated away. "You know, sadness is part of life." "Any luck finding that handkerchief?" said the little pixie, sliding down the rainbow to join her. Crystal shook her head. "I can't find anyone who's never been upset, sick or hurt, even the grown-ups." "You see, Crystal, everybody hurts and cries at times," said the pixie. "The important thing to remember is that sadness and disappointment will pass. If you have to miss a party, it's not the end of the world. Think about something fun you and your friend can do together to celebrate a birthday when you feel better instead." Crystal nodded. "Maybe Gloria and I can have a special party of our own with our favourite cake," she said. "I could even still wear my lovely new dress." "Exactly," said the pixie, but he was starting to fade away in a swirl of colours. The next thing Crystal knew, Dad was offering her a drink of water as she woke up. "You slept for a long time," he said as she sat up to take the drink. "Do you feel any better?" "A bit," said Crystal, stretching. "I had a weird dream." Then she looked at her father strangely. "Dad, do you ever cry at things you see on TV?" "Like a baby," Dad blushed. "There's an old movie, a black and white one that Mum and I love, but it always makes us cry. We get through a whole box of tissues when we watch it." Crystal squeezed his hand. "To tell the truth, I often feel better after a good cry," said Dad. "I know what you mean," agreed Crystal. "I'm still sad to miss Gloria's party, but I know this feeling won't last forever. It's like that wise pixie said, nothing lasts forever. I'll stop feeling ill soon, and I know I'll stop feeling sad too." "That's very true," said Dad. "Clever girl." But he scratched his head. "What wise pixie?" Crystal laughed. "Oh, just a new friend I met in my dream. We had a real adventure. Sit down and I'll tell you all about it." And feeling much better already, that's exactly what she did.
I love it. And I kind of had I was imagining and laughing to myself when your friends are like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And you can say, "You look kind of sad. Your face always looks sad." And you can say, "The important thing to remember is that sadness and disappointment will pass. Everybody hurts and cries at times. If I have a
Read my
long face,
T-shirt.
yes, it's not the end of the world if my face looks sad."
People get frightened by sadness.
I know.
It's somehow, well, quite often that's a very similar thing that people think, if I start crying, I'll never stop. And I say, well, it's just the same thing as somebody tells you a joke. It doesn't matter how funny it is. You will stop laughing at some point. It doesn't matter how sad something is or how upset you are. You will stop crying. You know, it might take time, but you will stop crying. And actually, to me, as a psychotherapist, I would say that's a sign of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
A sign of mental ill health are people who are unable to express the corresponding emotion to what's actually happening to them. You know, so if somebody hurts you, it is appropriate to say ouch or to cry. To kid on it didn't happen is I don't think it's a useful thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with crying? I mean, if people tickled you and you didn't laugh, that'd be a bit strange.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some things we have permission for some unknown reason to be a particular way, which denies a lot of who we actually are, and that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy, and it's a lot of us, and it means that on a certain level we split and we abandon parts of ourselves. You know, so then as adults, because we know that children never do what we say, but they watch us self-medicate. You know, we want to be chirpy, cheery, happy all the time, so we drink, we take drugs, we get medication off the doctor, We do all sorts of things to avoid reality,
Mm-hmm.
and that's more difficult to deal with. I mean, in Britain, the biggest killer for men in their early 20s and in their 50s, so around about my age, is suicide. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's what you're measuring it up against.
Okay, so how are so much is happening in the world now. There's President Trump, who's our new president. You have
I'll pick that.
so what's the parable? He just had a State of the Union here. Is there a parable that you can tell us? I know when you were at BBC, what can you tell the American people? I know you had paused for a thought where you share some parable or wisdom from the Buddhist philosophy. What would you say for those who are like, I am suffering? And it's not just in the U.S., right? Because it's where you live too, right?
Well, this too will pass. This too will pass. I mean, I went to see the Churchill movie the other night there, took me whole back to the Second World War. I mean, the world has not been out of conflict or war, and we keep thinking, oh, there were happier times. I grew up in the 60s and 70s with Northern Ireland and all the bombing over there. It seems to be it's part of the human condition that, and strangely enough, it does seem to be, and I think this is right, is that we are actually living in the least violent times in history.
We are.
So it's sort of, and again, it's, and over here there's a lot of complaints about all the political things and change and all this, but the idea of what poverty is now is not the same as what poverty was when I was a child.
That's true.
Again, I suppose again it would come back to the Four Noble Truths. The second noble truth is that we're not happy with what we've got. We don't stop to appreciate what we've got. We're not aware of what we actually have because we actually believe that somewhere there is a happy land. I think it's this thing about growing up in stories with this idea of we're ever after.
Right.
And actually that doesn't happen. Actually life, and again, people might say that's a bit sort of pessimistic, but the Buddha would just say, well, no, it's just realistic. So just learn to deal with it. If you actually learn to deal with what was going on and stop trying to avoid it or blame other people, but we start with ourselves. So the idea from the Four Noble Truths is that we, rather than starting to, so the Four Noble Truths, the last noble truth is called the Eightfold Path. And that is the actual practical way of attending to your internal experience, your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others. It's not about trying to change the world, it's about trying to change how we come into the world, because when we're more content, we respond to the world. If we're happy, if we have more insight, we respond to the world in a different way. But there's always been, well, a lot of this, there's always been leaders. I mean,
okay, so there's no truth. Noble truth one is they're suffering. No, noble truth two is that there's
suffering.
Sorry.
So there's the noble truth that is suffering. That's just reality. So the suffering, the cause of suffering, the suffering comes about because we want life to be different.
Right.
Third noble truth is that we can change that. There is cessation to suffering. The fourth noble truth is a path leading from suffering, which is called the Eightfold Path, and that's in the book as well. And that's looking about how we, like things like right livelihood, how we bring ourselves into the world, how we think, how we approach things. It looks at the body, feelings, thoughts, and our relationship with the world. So all the time we're coming back to looking at mindfulness, body, feelings, thoughts. And we change that for ourselves. So it's like the world changes, even with all things going on around about you. In a way, you can wake up in the morning and it's pouring with rain, and you go, oh man, it's raining. You can stand out there in the rain and curse about the rain, or you can just go inside and put a jacket on. It's not necessarily the context that impacts us. You made me feel this. No, in a way, what's going on with you is, but that might be a bit controversial. But I don't believe that others make us feel things. We actually, in a way, although it's unconscious, we choose how we react to other people.
Right.
Yeah.
So
trying to understand. You're always trying to understand difference in different people. And I think that's the fundamental issue again that the Buddha's going on a lot about, is that what causes suffering is that we find it difficult to tolerate difference. That's what frightens us. And we are frightened, then we get violent because we want everyone to think and feel and do the same as us.
Okay.
You know?
All
That
right.
makes sense?
Yeah. So if we were to apply the Four Noble Truths to what's happening in this world right now, so let's
Yeah.
actually the one is there's suffering. There is suffering, right? People are still suffering. It's a lot better than it was, like you were saying, right? Like, poverty now is different than poverty was many years ago, right? I mean, not even like 30 years ago. I mean, it's substantially changed. And then the third noble truth is, I didn't write these down. The third is
There's a way out of suffering.
there's a way out of suffering, and then and it's to accept what is, right? Is that the whole idea of accepting what is?
Yeah, which again is a lovely T-shirt slogan, just accept things as they are.
Right.
A lot more difficult. I mean, a great idea, but the fourth noble truth is the path, which actually sort of breaks that down into different
To
stages
the
and
eight
different.
different, the eight noble, or whatever, the eightfold
Oh,
path.
yeah, so it's a path. So it's seen as a path. So we're not trying to become. If you're a Buddhist, you're not trying to become the Buddha. You're trying to become yourself, enlightened. The Buddha was a human being who gained enlightenment. He basically said, this is the way I did it. And that was one of the things that I always liked about it. It said, this is the way I did it. You try it and see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, try something else.
Right. Got it.
That's what faith's built on. You're not forced. And that, again, back to the whole idea of trying to get people to think for themselves. You take responsibility for your own path, and you start to know what helps you and what doesn't help you. And that's how ethics arise. You learn that certain activities bring you more contented, calm mental states. Other activities actually don't.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to run a race in the morning, don't go and get drunk the night before. It's not rocket science.
Right.
So it's sort of like say, well, yes, try and move away from intoxicants, but it's not like you shouldn't have intoxicants. It's more like, well, if you think about it, taking intoxicants actually doesn't help.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
doesn't help your long-term plan. And if your long-term plan is to be happy, it's probably best to avoid those.
All right. So there are a couple questions that people had. So does he actually have audiobooks? And they said, I would really enjoy hearing you talk in an audiobook. We have people here, the women are entranced by your accent. They want you to create an audiobook. Do you have an audiobook?
No, there are audiobooks, but it's not me.
Oh,
The Scottish accent for the audiobooks, I'm afraid.
we like the Scottish accent here. It's a real winner over here. You'd rake up here if at all you were interested. Okay. So let's actually go to, there are a couple meditations in the back that you suggest. Could you step us through? We have I think about 10 more minutes. Can you step us through one or a couple of these meditations?
Yeah. So these meditations are for children, and they're sort of drawn from the idea of mindfulness and just basically drawing your child's attention into the present moment. And with all the stories, they all start off the same because, again, repetition is one of the ways to start to learn things. You remember things with repetition. So everything starts off the same. So is there a particular one you would like me to do?
Okay. What do these map to? What Buddhist meditations do they map to? It's like one loving kindness and the other one. What are some of these?
Loving kindness comes from what's called the Metta Bhavana, compassionate meditation. So it's cultivating compassion for other living beings.
Okay.
Mindfulness, the mindful breathing is, well, just simply that. It's kind of coming into, it's touching into mindfulness.
Okay, let's do visiting the magical garden and relaxing garden.
Okay. So, notice how you're feeling. Take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. And then a long, slow breath out through your mouth. Take another long, gentle breath in. and feel your body fill with air. Then breathe a slow breath out, letting your body soften and feel nice and cozy. Imagine you're standing before two glittering golden gates set into majestic stone walls. Feel the ground below your feet as you look up at the gates. Above you, the sky is blue and the sun is shining. You feel the warmth of the sun's kiss on your skin. You reach out and touch the gates. They swing smoothly open. The gates will open only for you. This is your garden, yours alone. You walk through the gates and onto a path. The path glistens in the sunlight. You feel warm and safe. You can smell the perfume of the many flowers in the garden. You hear birds singing and the chattering in the trees. You hear the sound of water as it tumbles into the fresh pools ahead of you. Little silver fish dance through the water. You sit on the edge of the pool and slip your feet and legs into the water. It feels cool and refreshing as it flows between your toes. You feel completely at peace. Feel the gentle movements of your breath in through your nose and gently, calmly out through your mouth. Straighten your legs to raise your feet above the water. Watch the water drops sparkle on your skin like millions of jewels. You stand up and make your way back up the path. You feel completely at peace. As you reach the gates, you turn and look back at the garden. You step through the gates and they close softly behind you. Now bring your attention back to your breathing. When you feel ready, open your eyes. Notice how you're feeling now.
So that's a one to just get you in a complete relaxed state.
That's a sensory one. I mean, again, that's a lot of the sort of what mindfulness, start off with mindfulness is just getting people in contact with their senses. Notice what you smell, notice what you feel, notice what you're touching. Just come alive, because again, we can live a lot of our time just with ideas in our head, but so can you feel your toes? So as you're sitting listening at the moment, are you aware of the contact of your chair? Where is your attention? So you try to inhabit your body rather than living your life through the binoculars of the mind.
Right, to feel more embodied. Okay, so let's do another one since we have time. Yay! Okay, so would you read the Golden Light Mindful Breathing one?
Look, I'm beginning to feel I sound Scottish myself.
Someone said that made them feel tired. Should that have happened? And I think the answer is yes.
It's meant to fall asleep now.
Do not listen to this radio show if you're driving. Okay. All right, let's listen to the Golden Light Mindful Breathing one.
Okay. So again, they all start off the same as just notice what's actually happening at the moment. So notice how you're feeling. Take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. And then a long, slow breath out through your mouth. Take another long, gentle breath in and feel your body fill with air. Then breathe a slow breath out. Let your body soften and relax. Now imagine that your breath is a beautiful, soft, golden light. Make your breaths long and gentle, first in and then out. Imagine your body is filling with soft golden light with each new golden breath. And right up at the top of your head, flowing down, down, out along your arms to your hands. Gentle golden light flowing to the tips of your fingers. As you continue to breathe, imagine yourself feeling cozier and more relaxed. Feel the golden light flow down your back. Fill and relax your chest, and then fill and soften your tummy. Then moving down into your legs, into your feet. and then filling out each of your toes. As the golden light flows through you, you feel more and more relaxed. If your mind gets distracted, just notice your body again. Notice your breath. And imagine the golden light filling you with warmth and ease. Finally, as you breathe out, let the golden light flow out of your mouth into the air all around you. And notice how you're feeling now.
That's nice. So that's actually another one where you're kind of getting back into the presence of your body. And you're having people focus on different parts of their body versus you're saying like being right here in their mind. Okay, can you do one more? It's just, are you okay with doing one more? The cultivating kind, friendly wishes. I think everyone's going to be so relaxed afterwards. Can we have that guy back and just read to us the whole time?
Well, maybe that's how we'll deal with Mr. Trump. I'll put the puppy to sleep.
Yes, put everyone to sleep.
And then you'll all wake up.
Yeah, exactly. I feel better now. Where am I?
Okay. So again, just bring your attention back into yourself, from where the contact to your chair, and notice how you're feeling. Take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose, and then a long, slow breath out through your mouth. Take another long, gentle breath in, and feel your body fill with air. Then breathe a slow breath out. Let your body soften and feel nice and relaxed. Now think of someone you like spending time with. Someone who makes you happy. Maybe it's a friend or someone from your family. Imagine that person is with you right now. Notice how you feel when you think of this person. And whatever you feel is okay. Now imagine that you're looking at them and telling them what you like about them. It could be anything at all. It might be their generosity or the fact that they are your friend. Next, imagine saying to them that you wish them happiness. You want them to be strong and healthy. You want them to have lots of kind friends and a peaceful life. Imagine as you're wishing your friend well, that a beautiful flower is blossoming near their heart. The flower can be any colour you wish. And as you think of your friend, imagine that the fragrance of the flower perfumes the air around both of you. Now imagine that your friend is looking at you and saying all these things to you. I want you to be happy. I want you to be healthy and strong. I want you to feel peaceful. Notice how you're feeling now.
That's really nice too. So that's the meditation. Like, may you be happy, may you be well, may you. So the kind of for children's style. And I actually think it works. Someone had said, can I just get this as an adult? The answer is yes.
Yes, it's called the Metta Bhavana. That's just a short version. There's different stages to it.
I know. Tell us the dead baby one. And then the question is, does your guest have a radio show here on these stations? Do you have any a radio show in the U.S.?
No, I don't know much.
And it says, if you don't, can you? I think you've made a big impression on our listeners.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's been delightful, and I'm so relaxed I can barely say a sentence now. We've been talking to Dharmeshari Nagaraja about his book, The Calm Buddha at Bedtime, written for children and also adults, I would say. Thank you so much.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show, and love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.